Welcome to Check Out My Dad Pod, a podcast by a dad, with dads, and for dads. My name is Mike Wickett, and in the span of a year, I went from a father of 0 to a father of 3. So after 20 years on the radio, I hung up my headphones to stay at home with my kids. And I'm here on this podcast to talk about it with you. And inside the Koss Headphone Studios, this is Check Out My Dad Pod. Welcome to Check Out My Dad Pod, a podcast by a dad. 20 years on the radio, I hung up my headphones to stay at home with my kids. And I'm here on this podcast to talk about it with you. And inside the Koss Headphone Studios, this is Check Out My Dad Pod. Another episode of Check Out My Dad Pod. I'm your host, Mike Wickett. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to tell you some stories of the last week of being a dad, including on the day that I'm recording this, which is Wednesday, May 13th. Today was a hell of a day. A hell of a day to stay home with 3 babies. And I'm not going to lie, today's episode there might be a White Claw consumed during the interview portion. Joining me right now from the great state of Kansas, a guy that you have heard on the radio in Kansas City radio for the better part of 2 decades. I want to welcome in my good friend Brady Goodman.
Oh,
he is a.
Hey, Mike.
What is that?
I was just reading my Michael Jordan collection here.
Okay.
As I'm down in my basement, but with The Last Dance showing up, I've just been pulling out all the Michael Jordan goodies, dude. I was on it. The Wheaties boxes. I got the posters. Be like Mike. You hear that?
Well, the thing about The Last Dance is, and this might be something for my other podcast.
Yes.
In Wisconsin, we can talk more sports and get real nerdy on it.
Yes.
Ken Burns, who did the incredible documentary of baseball, he is 100% right. I question a lot about a documentary when the subject of the documentary gets final say in what is put in the documentary. There's a lot of stuff about Mike that's just glossed over and all these things, but I digress. How are you doing? How's your wife? How are your kids? Are you guys staying safe? Are you bored yet? Okay, he's having a cruise. Okay.
Let me tell you how I'm with you on the drinking thing. Listen, man, things are fine here. I've got 3 kids, 11, 7, and 5, and so, or 11, 8, and 5, in that age range,
you
right?
You should know that. They're between 5 and 11.
I mean, it's all a blur at this point. Dude, I want to hear about you and twins and Irish triplets. I mean, because I was a big part, we were around each other a lot leading up to the twins being born. And since then, not so much. So I'm just dying to know, like, what it's like. And of all times to do it during a pandemic.
Well, I mean, thanks for listening to the podcast. We've done about 20 of these, so you could have learned in the last 5 months. But no, it's it's been wild. And actually, Brady, I've thought of you a lot during this time because I drink a lot. No, I thought about you a lot during my time staying home with the kids, and since the twins were born 4 months ago, because you have 3. Yours are all girls, which, thank goodness I got my one boy Miles in there. But you've got 3 girls, and just to think about what it's like, and yours are kind of spaced out like a normal person. Ours are jammed in there. The twins and Britton, our oldest, are the same age for 2 weeks out of every year, which is wild.
Wow.
This is, as you might expect, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. I mean, I've worked in radio for a long time, and radio's kind of we say we work real hard, and we do, but it's not nearly as physically or as mentally taxing and draining as what I'm going through right now. And I knew it was going to be hard. I knew it was going to be very hard when I made the choice to do this when Lee got the job up here in Des Moines. but I mean, today I'm alone with them for 10 hours.
And that's a lot.
And one of them was screaming or crying for almost all of that 10 hours. You actually might be able to hear in the background one of them screaming down the hall.
Let me hear. I can't.
Let me see if I can crank this.
Yeah.
Is he loud? Let me see, crank the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's my boy.
A couple things here. One, Jason Kander, who was on, has done
former Missouri Secretary of State.
Right. Mm-hmm. He's a veteran. He's an author.
He ran for Senate. He's going to run for president.
Right. So why I'm on this same podcast is beyond me. I don't think anybody wants my advice. The other thing is...
Wait a minute. Kander was on 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. And for those that didn't hear that interview, he was fantastic. He's got his son, True, and it was great. I asked Brady, this week's guest, I said, hey, do you want to be my guest on Check Out My Dad pod this week? I'm not following Kander.
Dude, I mean, you take any one of the things that he's done, and my whole life doesn't match up. Now, okay. So who wants advice from me? Two, let me say a cliche, and I want you to think about this a lot. And again, it's a cliche for a reason, but the days are long, the years are short.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that one a lot.
I mean, it's one of those things, those cliches, kind of like don't cry over spilt milk. It's a great concept, but oftentimes it's really hard to live up to.
And I don't know. I mean, I met you in 2015 when we moved to Kansas City. Mm-hmm. What was your role when the kids were real young? I don't even know. Like, this is the first time you and I have talked about sports. We talked about music. We've talked about radio. We've talked about drinking. But what was your role when your first daughter was born 11 years ago?
So get this. My wife was pregnant. She was whatever it would have been, 6 months pregnant. It was Christmas. We were at my in-laws on Christmas vacation, and I got fired from my radio gig over the phone on Christmas vacation. So, and of course there's a non-compete there. So the kid is born in May. So I did what you did and I stayed home. Now there was only one, right? And it was my first.
It's the same way to go about
it. But you know what I did? I stayed with her. I freelanced on the side and went back and got my college degree. But I will tell you, man, she and I are so tight. Not that I'm not tight with the others, and I don't know if it's because she's the first but dude, I stayed with her for the first, I don't know, year of her life. I was essentially, yeah.
I didn't know
because, and then so the following August, so it would have been, but dude, I was having a great time since I didn't have a gig. When she got to be 8 months, a year old or whatever, we would go to Royals games, just me and her. We would sit in the outfield. I was there. It was amazing. And it's a tough call though, Mike, right? It's a tough call because what do? You have to weigh that financial burden that we all carry on top of, well, do I work or do I stay home? Do I work just to have somebody else raise my kids? And so I love what you're doing, man. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be insanely hard now, but listen, this seems like something Jason Kander would say. What's easy and worth it when you look back, right? Anything in life that's worth something is hard, right?
Yeah.
And these kids are only going to be this age once. They're all going to do it together. And, there's plenty of time to work. You're still a young man. You got 50, 60 years ahead of you to work. So.
Perfect. Yesterday, my son pooped in my hand yesterday.
I was really shocked at how little poop bothered me after some amount of time.
You strike me, for knowing you as a germaphobe, you strike me as someone that poop really would bother them. It doesn't bother me as much as I thought it would either. It's like, okay, it's there. Like, I cleaned a diaper today, and you just kind of do it. You throw the diaper away, then you go scrub your hands, especially now we're hand sanitizing every 30. My hands are cracking because of the amount of hand sanitizer I'm using.
Dude, this is weird to say, but I'd be more comfortable with my baby's poop on me than a stranger's handshake.
COVID-19.
Right?
Yeah.
And so not only that, but I'll also say not only the poop I really got accustomed to, but the crying, right? I thought it would be so grating. I thought it would be, and again, you had 10 hours of it today, so maybe not the best time, but dude, I mean, it really didn't. So now when I'm on a plane or I'm at a store and somebody else's baby's bawling their head off, you get that as the parent frustration. You're like, oh, I hope everybody around me's not bothered by my, I don't care, man. I've been there. It sucks. Deal with
today. That was today. My daughter woke up, the twin, Miller. She woke up 45 minutes early from her early nap.
Yeah.
So I got a 10-minute. I was supposed to get an hour break. I got a 10-minute break because she was going bananas. And I sent a text to my wife. I said, why does your daughter hate me? But I mean, the thing, crying still bothers me. Like there are times when, and I have to take myself out of the situation, leave the room, go outside, take a deep breath. And you have to do that sometimes. I didn't think crying was going to bother me as much. I haven't gotten used to it yet. And at times, not only is there one baby screaming, two, but I get the triple. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. Like you get used to poopy diapers, you get used to I mean, I change 30 diapers a day. 30 diapers a day, man.
Wow.
We did the math. We make 17 bottles and change 30 diapers a day.
Dude, that's insanity.
I know. We spend a lot of.
I should
put my GoFundMe up here. My my Venmo.
You really should. You really should, man. Because diapers. What do you think your diaper budget is?
I mean,
in a month.
To be 100% honest, you know, the twins are in 2s. They're borderline. They're overnight in 3s. They're wearing 2s throughout the day. We received through friends and family. We're very happy to say this. We got a lot of diapers, and Britain jumped from 2s to 3s real quick. So we had a lot of 2s left over. We got a lot of, like we had leftover newborn diapers that we're donating to a shelter. You know, we have a lot of, we've been very fortunate. We haven't spent a lot of money on diapers yet.
Yeah, man, they get expensive. So are you getting any sleep at night? Like, and who handles the awake at night? Do you guys switch off?
When it was just Britain, Lee would handle it. But because there's 2, I get up now. Because we had a deal. Anything between 10 o'clock p.m. and 5 a.m. the first time around, Lee would get up. And after 5 a.m., it would be me. I'd be downstairs with her, would feed her. Then we go, get ready for work, go off to daycare. And that was the day. Now that there's 2 of them, I have to get up. It's just not fair to say, no, you go ahead and you take care of both of them, because when one gets up, you have to get the other one up at the same time. That way they're on the same schedule. Right now they are sleeping until, hopefully, fingers crossed, 2 a.m. And then we feed them at 2 a.m., a small amount to get them to about 6 or 6:30. And then the cycle starts over again.
God, dude, I got to tell you, man, it's so crazy because parenting is so cliche, but also so individually, so individualized. You know what I mean? Like, again, there's cliches and all, but I look back on that time and I'm like, oh man, I remember that. But right now we have like our youngest will come into our bed twice a week, maybe. And early on, I was like, oh, no co-sleeping. And I'm like, I've read the books. Now, dude, now that I'm on the tail end of it, it doesn't bother me.
See, and it's funny because, you're in that, I'm in that mode right now, Brady, and maybe you are there too, where, God, I want to hold these 2 little twins, because Britain all of a sudden is walking and she's not talking. I mean, she's saying the mama, dada, baba, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh man, I worked. And I had a job I was on a station in Kansas City, and I feel like I missed out on a lot of hours with her. And all of a sudden, she's 15 months. And now with the other 2, it's like, God, I want them to grow up just a little bit, because I want them to shut up. I want them to be quiet. I don't want them to scream and cry as much. But at the same time, I was sad when I looked at Lee and said, they don't fit into newborn clothes anymore, or they don't fit into 3-month clothes anymore because they're so long. Like you want them to grow up so you think things get easier, and you can tell me if I'm way off on that, but there's still that.
No.
Because we're done. Lee's had her procedure. I'm going to have mine. We're quarantining ourselves from each other. But I'm never going to dress my own babies in newborn diapers or newborn clothes again. And as much as I'm happy about that, I'm also sad about it.
Right?
Yeah.
Dude, 100%. Listen, the other night, 2 nights ago, I was having an existential crisis where I spent at least an hour up in the middle of the night doing the math of when my youngest is my age, how old will I be? And what are the chances that I'm still alive? I know, dude.
0.
Right? I mean, I'm like, it was making me so sad to think that I'm not going to see my kid hit 45.
So your youngest
it was really bumming me out.
Your youngest is 5. Your youngest is 5.
Mm-hmm.
So she's off the payroll in 13 years, in 2033.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's my question to you. 2 things. 1, do you wish you were younger or older? Right? Because I always say that having kids is a young man's game. For you right now, this lack of sleep is a lot harder than it would be if you were 24. Right?
Yeah,
but also you're not as mature and all that.
I know me at 24, and I know me.
Well, right.
I know me even at 34. My dad was a guest on this podcast a couple of months back, and I said, "Did you ever think you were going to be?" Well, he was a grandfather because my sister had 2, but did you ever think that I was going to have kids? And he said, "No." There was a time I thought, "Nope, that's it." He likes to have fun. He likes to party too much, and we had Britain when Lee was 37, I think. Let's see, get 37, 38, somewhere in there. And I was 38 when we had, or I was 37 when we had Britain. And to me, I wouldn't change it. I had a blast in my 20s, and I had a blast in my 30s. Up until the point when I was about 35, right when I moved to Kansas City, stuff started to really start to hurt the next day.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? All of a sudden you couldn't recover as well. And then, I asked her to marry me, and then all of a sudden it was kid time. So I wouldn't go back and do it any earlier, just because I know me and I know how much fun I had in my 20s and my 30s.
It's a tough call because I have a cousin who's my age and we're pretty tight, but he had his first kid when he was 18 or 19. Well, his kids were in college before or right around the time I was having my first kid. But when he had that kid, he buckled down on his career. And now, his kids are in college and he's got a massive house and a great career.
Well, that's the thing too. I paused my career right now. You know what I mean? I was at 3 radio stations and had success in Ann Arbor and Milwaukee and Kansas City, and kind of put myself on hold right now. I feel really proud that I can look back and say, from 2000 to 2019, the end of 2019, I accomplished a lot in my career, and I'm going to put that on pause. And who knows if radio will be a thing.
Seriously.
In 5 or 6 years, who knows? But I put myself on pause. When you had your first, your career was on pause, whether you wanted it to be or not. You paused it. When did you? Was it when the second one came around? When did you jump back into doing radio, to getting back on the air? How old was the first, and then when did the second come around?
So again, my dad math, it's all blurry, but when she was, I started doing part-time stuff because I was hustling, because I was doing my thing, right? And I graduated college, and then I was doing a full-time video gig because at some point she had to go to preschool because I'm not going to teach her, right? No. So we got there. My wife would know so much better than me, but I mean, at some point,
this is not a podcast for moms. Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, no, sorry, but she would know dates and remember what happened. I don't know, man. I still go back and forth, between, am I working too much? Am I not working enough? I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. Should I push harder on the career? For financial stability? Should I back off on the career? And I'm already not even doing a full-time gig just so I can be around them more. Mm-hmm. Because, dude, think about all those people that work 2 weeks out of the month just to pay somebody else to raise their kid. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
daycare is expensive.
Listen, if the opportunity didn't come, I mean, do you know what daycare is for 3?
What would it be for newborns too?
$35,000 a year.
Right.
$35,000 a year. I mean, we had a wonderful daycare lady in Kansas City. Miss Pat was fantastic. But when I told her we were having twins, she looked at me and said, "You would be stupid to use me because it would triple your cost." And we have a triple stroller, so you'd have to load them in the triple stroller and then take them and put them in the minivan that we bought and then unload the triple stroller every day. So have someone come into your house, $30,000 to $35,000, if not more, depending on all of that. So yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. When you had already slipped one past the goalie twice, and both times it came up girl, were you thinking we got to keep trying for my boy? What was the conversation like? Guys? Because Lee and I had one, and we were going to try to have a second. We didn't know how quickly we were going to have that second baby, and that turned into a second and a third.
Yeah, to you, I can't say the third was the surprise because I'm pretty sure you guys had ultimate surprise.
Yeah, we did.
Right? Yeah, you guys had a surprise on the next level. Obviously, you can imagine me being irresistible. So I will say the third. I will say the third was not planned, but dude, listen. Here's the thing: I love being a dad so much that I wish I would have started earlier so that I could have had 6. I mean, dude, I would have been
really?
I love it. I coach soccer. I coach basketball. I'm helping them make YouTube videos all the time. I just love it, dude. More than Michael Jordan and the Wheaties boxes that I'm still holding.
If anybody's watching this video, you're listening to us, the video is posted as well, or will be. I see a bunch of Kansas City Royals banners back there. Brady's wearing a Royals hat right now.
There's an autographed picture of Frank White up there behind my World Series tickets. I bought that autograph picture of Frank White way drunk at the K one day. Way drunk.
Do your daughters like the Royals?
Kind of. Again, I think my oldest does, just because we would go together, and it was our tradition to go on their birthday, just dad and daughter to a game, right? And not as a family, not as a whole thing. I mean, I don't know, man. It's hard to say right now because nobody's watching sports.
Yeah.
I wish. Yeah. I mean, I can't say my oldest is way into volleyball. I tell you what, I love coaching kids so much. It's a blast. I'm crazy sports dad, and I have 3 daughters under 10. So imagine what those sports are like. You know what I'm saying?
I know what your answer is going to be, but are you guys done? Would you try for a boy?
Listen, bro. I'm all in. Margie, though,
Margie's enjoying going to concerts and having some Leinenkugels, man.
Yeah, she is not about it. I mean, every once in a while, I'll knock back some White Claws or some Coors and go, hey, maybe we should foster or adopt or something. And she's just not about it. Yeah. And I get it. I'm just, being silly. Dude, but I really do love it. I'm hyped up. And I remember before I had a kid, I wasn't all that into it. And a buddy of mine was like, look, man, I love it so much. Cause again, he was one of those guys that had kids that were older, and she was like 7, 8, 10. He's like, man, I put her in the car. We rolled to Home Depot, and I got a buddy. Not that I'm friendly dad, but there is that relationship, and you're going to get so much quality time. And the other day, even during this pandemic, my middle kid was having a tough day, right? And we've just been trapped, and there's cabin fever and all that. And she's caught in the middle. So I go, you know what? Get a mask. Let's go. And so we drove out to the country to a landscaping, the grass pad where you get high on grass.
I've heard of that. Yeah. Yeah, I have heard of that.
One of the greatest jingles of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But she and I just got in the car. We took, and it was a 20-minute drive, and we could chat and we could talk and we could chill. And we got out there and we walked around, and it didn't even, I think we ended up buying 10 bags of mulch and then drove back. And dude, there's just not another relationship like it. Not me and her, but you and your kid. And you said it gets hard. It does get easier, but it gets harder in a different way. You know what I mean? Right now it's hard because they're crying and they can't communicate, but it's easy because you can put them down and they're not going anywhere. Like, I'm at the point where my 11-year-old or my son, now she's edging on, they're not dances, but they have school, fun nights. Yeah, that thing.
Okay.
And, I'm like, oh, how much freedom do I give her? So it's just harder in a different way.
Gosh.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I always say this too, man. Like, with my first one, I was so like, when's she gonna walk? Let's get her to walk. Oh my gosh, she's walking at 10 and a half months. Other kids don't walk, And then with my third one, she would start to crawl and I would push her down so she wouldn't. I was like, slow down. We got time to walk. You know what I mean? So it gets harder in a different way, and it gets easier in a different way.
What do you like? It's so funny because I'm on social media just like you, and I'm on Twitter and I'm on Facebook and Insta and all these things. These podcasts are on Spotify and Google and all that stuff. And I see people complaining that they're bored. They want to get a haircut. They've watched everything on Netflix. And I've made mention of this in previous podcasts. I can't relate. Like, right. I'm inside and I'm watching Netflix like you. I get a short amount of time between when the kids go to sleep. I have 3 glasses of wine and then pass out. So the pandemic really hasn't resonated with me at all. Like, I was quarantined the second they were born. And before that, when I moved to Des Moines in December, I've been quarantined for 6 months now. So I don't know what the conversation is really like to have with somebody who is quarantined other than my wife, Lee. What is your conversation like as a dad with 3 girls between the ages of, 5 and 11?
So I told you I was working a part-time job. I have to go into that office. So I'm going into the office, right? And because it's part-time, it's kind of like radio hours, right? Where I leave at 9 and I'm back at 3 or whatever. My wife's working from home. Our sitter, the kids were going to her house after school every day. And like, I would pick up some of their kids on the way to school, and she would pick up some of them, if that makes any sense. You still got
You're kind of breaking.
You got me. Okay, you got me.
Start over. Start your answer over.
So I told you I work this part-time gig, so I'm still having to go into the office for that. My wife's working from home, but our daycare provider that the kids were with before the pandemic, and like I don't know. I don't want to say we're our own 2-family cult, but we're cultish because we're so close. So they're going over there for like schooling during the day, because we've been with them the whole time. So we're like quarantining together. And my wife was doing this whole Hillary, it takes a village, but we do really benefit. Because I was picking up their kids before school. They were picking up my kids after school. They would hang out for a couple hours. We've just been, together. Mm-hmm. They live 2 houses away. So the weird thing is, how do you explain to your kids, my kids go, I'm sick of hearing about COVID-19. I hear you.
Everybody's sick of hearing about COVID-19. Right. I mean,
right.
Tell your kids to get in. No.
Here's what's going to be crazy, though, Mike. Listen, no sports. So the kids, no soccer. We had a basketball season planned. None of that. No volleyball. The pools are all going to be closed this summer. School got out 3 months early, and my kids are already like, man, kind of bumming that school ended because they haven't seen their friends right? I know we're doing birthday parades for, kids. It's a crazy time, man. I don't know. It's crazy.
And who knows what happens when my 3 become the ages of your 3? Like there could be another one. These seem to happen often. There's some sort of virus or there's some sort of, whatever. And this one seems to be more serious than anything that I can remember. So I imagine trying to come up with stuff to do, keeping them busy, keeping them entertained, keeping them educated. I have to imagine that, here we are 2 months into this thing, that you and your wife are sitting here looking at each other like, the hell do we do next?
Imagine, Mike, being in this situation without the internet.
Yeah, right. Like, what if we got quarantined in 1995?
Dude, how insane would that be? Seriously. So that, whether you're talking about access to education apps, access to learning, access to what everybody else is doing, access to just go turn on the iPad and leave us alone for a little bit. It's such a weird time, and I don't know. I think we're very, very, very lucky, Mike. I know a lot of people who financially have just been hammered by this. I certainly know families personally that have been sick with this. We're talking about thousands of people with dead. I'm so lucky, right? And so we've been nothing but lucky through this whole thing, and hopefully it continues. We're trying to be as smart as we can.
Did you always want to be a dad?
No. Did you?
No.
I didn't.
No.
I mean, here's the thing. I grew up Catholic.
Ditto.
So kind of like college, I feel like it was just something that was bound to happen, right? Like if I really,
I wouldn't have gone that far, but okay.
It was just like, it's something you do. You graduate high school, you go to college, and eventually you have several kids. And even though I kind of shook off the Catholic thing, I certainly went to college and got a bunch of debt. So I didn't always, I just expected it to happen. But man, again, the cliches just ring so true. And it's the greatest thing ever. I just love it, man. I love it.
I know what a sports fan you are, and I know what a fan of being a dad you are, and you're a dad of 3. What did Kobe Bryant's death mean to you when the helicopter goes down and one of his 4 daughters is in the helicopter with him? And my dad was actually sitting on the couch next to me in Des Moines.
Wow.
Yeah, and my wife Lee yelled from the other room, "Hey, Kobe Bryant just died." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I immediately started crying because I knew Kobe had kids. I don't think I realized he had 4 girls, but that night, girl dad started trending. What was it like for you? What was it like for you being a girl dad of 3?
So the Kobe thing, certainly I was thinking about his daughter and his surviving family members, probably more, right? But to me, what really hits so much now are the stories that you read. Like, look, today there was a story about a 6-year-old in Dallas who had been chained up in a shed, right? And I know, and
what sites are you watching?
dude. And listen, here in Kansas City, there is the Noah's Bandage Project. Right. And I've been involved.
Our friend Bob Fesco from 610 Sports Radio is heavily involved in that.
Right. And so I've been involved in some of those fundraisers, and I just think about that family going through that. Again, you want to talk about just dumb luck in life. The fact that my kids have all been healthy is amazing. And we all know people whose kids or whose families and have a sick kid or a kid that's not living with optimal health, if not worse. And again, it just the pain point, the empathy muscle is swelled up so much, right? You talk about being sore when we get up these days as we get older. You know what's not sore? My empathy muscle. It is strong because I'm working it. And I really try to be grateful that, dude, I don't know how people handle stuff like that. Right. 2 of my kids had almost stitches, like, the liquid stitches, you know what that is?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So 2 of them have had that. And that gave me PTSD. You know, I still think about when they got there. And my wife is the one that takes the kids to the shots because I can't do it. I mean, dude, and so to think about these families whose kids are really sick and are dealing with this stuff, man, and how this stems from the Kobe Bryant comment, I don't know. It all comes back to me is how much empathy I have and how precious life is and how lucky I am, you know, that my kids are healthy. I just, dude, you know, I'm just insanely lucky.
Well, I say this to everybody that is a guest on this podcast, and I've took 20 different guests that have been on the show so far or whatever. I know that your kids are grown out of the diaper phase.
Yes.
But Brady, if you ever get the urge to change another diaper, we are straight up I-35 from you. All right. You're a little further than downtown Kansas City, but it's still the same thing. You just get on 35 and you head north to Des Moines. And if you ever want to change a diaper or you ever want to hear the scream of 3 babies ever again, you just shoot me a text. Because I know my wife would love to see you again. I know that you can bring whoever the hell you want, man, whatever. You know, I appreciate you coming on. And if you ever do get that urge, feel free to let me know. And you can change I changed 5 poopy diapers yesterday, 4 within 1 hour, and 3 more today. Oh, you're always welcome to come up and change diapers at any time.
Listen, I love what you're doing. I love the respect the dads. I just think, you know, outsider looking in, and I know the grass is always greener, but I love it. I'm jealous. I would love to hold those babies. I really would. The changing poopy diapers I could probably pass on, but I respect what you're doing. I respect the respect you have for dads. And also I would like to say, I'm jealous you talked to Jason Kander. I have his autograph, but I love that guy, and good job getting him. That's a good guy.
He was almost as hard to track down and get on the show as you were.
Dude, I'm busy. I got Michael Jordan documentaries to watch and Coors to drink.
I had to go through Kander's people. I had to go through Kander's Twitter. I had to DM him. I had to text him. And you were like, hey, can I get you on? I'm not following Kander. It's not happening. Hey,
tell me I'm not smart for that.
I think I'm going to check back in with you in a little while, because once these little girls start to grow up and this little boy, I'm going to need more advice from you. So thank you so much for coming on. Continued success.
Dude,
it's been good to catch up with you. And again, anytime you want to come up to Kansas City, once the COVID come up to Des Moines, once this COVID-19 thing is over and done with and a little more under control, you, your wife, and what the hell, all 3 girls, you're always welcome.
Dude, nothing but love to the Wicket family. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Man. And my thanks again to Brady Goodman for joining me. And such a good dude. And I don't think I realized how much Brady really enjoys being a dad. You know, I've known Brady for a little while now, and he used to work for my wife at The Point down in Kansas City when she was the program director there. And I know that Brady was a big fan of being a dad, but you can just hear how much he really loves being a dad. And I can't imagine having 3 more. I mean, he's got 3 right now, 3 wonderful girls. And now he just mentioned that he would love to have 3 more. Oh, goodness. Our limit is 3. I thought our limit was 2, but sometimes things definitely do just happen. So if you have been listening to the podcast for a while, you have been kind of keeping up with, and I appreciate all the sentiment and, all the well wishes and all the people wishing me good luck, actually, staying at home as a dad with 3 babies, all 1 and under. And I was on the phone. The same question came up twice, actually. It came from my mother, and it came from my mother-in-law. Actually, they both asked me the same exact question within a day of each other. And I think it was last week. And we've all been on lockdown. We've all been under quarantine. We've all been staying at home, as I have here in Des Moines. And my mother-in-law lives just a mile and a half away. My mother lives in Detroit, and they both asked me this question. My mother-in-law came over and asked me this in person when she wanted to take our baby girl Britton out for a walk, and that was cool. And my mom asked me this when we were FaceTiming not too long ago, and they both asked me this question. So how are you doing? Really? How are you doing? Really? I'm doing all right. I really am. I mean, there are some days, like one day earlier this week, Lee came home from work and she said, how was everybody? And I said, today was incredibly easy. The babies ate, the babies minimally cried, the babies, they went to bed when they were supposed to. They slept for the most part when they were supposed to. I got my 2 breaks like I'm supposed to get with the new schedule. I get a break now from 9:30 to about 10:20, 10:30, somewhere in there. So I get about an hour in the morning, which is great. I can do stuff like record this podcast. And then I get a break from 1:30 to 2:30 with no babies awake. And then from 2:30 to 3:30, just the twins are awake. And then Britton gets up at 3:30. Now, all that, of course, as you know, if you've been a parent, all that is sometimes up in the air. Because when Lee came home that day and I said, boy, everybody just behaved well and everybody ate well and everybody did what they were supposed to do. Because with Britton, the struggle comes at 12 o'clock when she has to eat solid food, whether I cut up hot dog or we have chicken nugget for her or she has, some hamburger, some kind of adult protein. Then we try to feed her vegetables. And Britton has figured out that she doesn't like green vegetables. That's something she does not like. For case in point, we were having meatballs, little baby meatballs. You cut them in half and you serve them up. And also dinosaur-shaped broccoli. Check that. Dinosaur-shaped spinach. So they had taken chopped spinach and put it in the form of like a Tyrannosaurus or whatever. And the box says kids will eat up the spinach because they're having fun when they're doing it. Come on now. Come on now. You and I both know kids aren't having fun eating spinach. But I thought, all right, I'll give it a shot. I'll see what I can do. I'll give it a try. So I made one of those little nuggets and I put it with the Swedish, with the little meatballs. And first thing I did was I gave her the spinach. I usually won't lead with the good stuff because when you lead with the good stuff, she usually eats the good stuff, gets full, doesn't want any of the bad stuff. And by bad stuff, I mean the vegetables or the fruit. So I grabbed myself one of those spinach nuggets and I threw a little bit of it, like a little, the tail, I guess, of a Tyrannosaurus. And she put it in her mouth. And I thought, oh my gosh, is she going to eat spinach? Is this a thing that's going to happen? And then she didn't. That was it. That was the only bite she would eat. And then she wouldn't eat a lot of her meatballs. And usually when Britton eats a lot of her meal, we give her some of these Happy Tot cookies that are not all multi-grain and good for her or whatever. That's like her treat. Or she might get Golden Grams or whatever the case may be. That day, she didn't eat anything. And it's so frustrating because then there are other days when she'll eat 6 of those exact same meatballs, or she'll eat an entire hot dog. Yeah, she's eating an entire hot dog from time to time. And then there are other days where she doesn't eat anything. And it's just so infuriating and frustrating to go from one day when everybody ate well, and Britton ate 2 big slices of roast beef, and she ate some actual vegetables and all that, to a day like that. And then you couple it, and it all seems to happen on the same day. They're all either really good or really bad, seemingly. And I'm sure if you have multiples and they're as young as ours, then you understand. Because that same day, like the kids wouldn't, Miles woke up a half an hour early. And, the second time Miller woke up a half hour early and was screaming and crying and I couldn't get her to eat. And that's infuriating because if you know anything about this podcast, you know anything about the way that we're trying to run things here, which is, like herding cats, I should say. The schedule is so dang important. And you have to try to keep them on schedule. So they don't eat. That's going to screw you up later. If that screws you up later, then that really screws you up overnight. And so when the days are bad, they're really bad. But when the days are good, even the other day, like one of the good days that I had this week, everybody ate, everybody pooped, including my son Miles. in my hand. It was probably the grossest experience that I've had thus far. It's changing his diaper, and I'm sorry if poop grosses you out, but that's what we're going to talk about here for a second. The babies will poop every day or every other day, and on the rare occasion, every 2 days. But this happened to be the day after. Nobody pooped. None of the neither of the twins, and neither did Britton. And so it was 12 o'clock. Britton was eating. Actually, a good day. She was actually eating. And I went to changed Miller's diaper, and she had pooped. And that's cool. That's fine. And then I went to go change Miles' diaper because he had also pooped. Like, it was back to back. Our house smells terrible. It just smells awful at these moments. So they had gone back to back within 10 minutes of each other. They both filled their diaper. So I go to change Miles, and I open the diaper, and there it is. It's full of gross. And then as I'm starting to wipe, what happens? He goes again in my hand. And then that becomes on the play mat, and that gets on my sock. And it is the first time where I have felt defenseless against the poop. Like I had to take a deep breath. And the first thing you got to do is get him cleaned up and him buttoned up. So you got to wait for him to finish. And then once you get him done and finished, God, my hair, if you're watching this video, I apologize. My hair is just out of control. My wife wants to cut it. You have to get him buttoned up because once you shut off the leak, then you can take care of everything else. So you have to sit there and wait. Like you sit there with your hand covered in poop while he's finishing up filling his diaper. And then once that's done, you have to one-hand it. You know, you have to one-hand close it without getting more poop on the new diaper or on the clothes or on the baby. You can grab a baby wipe if you want. And then once that's done, then you have to move all the babies. Meanwhile, I got Britton in the back, and she's got to have more food put on her plate because if you put too much food on the plate, she knocks it off. So you got to just give her little bits at a time. You see the struggle that this really is? Do you understand the struggle that this really is every single day? And by the way, that was on a good day. That was on a good day. The other day, as I was mentioning to Brady, I'm with the babies for about 10 straight hours. I had at least one baby screaming or crying for 9 hours and 45 minutes of that. And it was one of those days where I've talked about this in the past, where you have to leave the room. You have to walk out. And I did. I left Britton in her jumpy thingy, and I put Miles on the mat. I put Miller on the mat. And I just walked outside. You know what I did? I went and got the mail. I gave myself 5 minutes, and I walked back in. Everybody's still screaming. Everybody's still crying. And it's just part of the deal. Some good news, since I probably have last spoken about the accomplishments of the babies. They just turned 4 months on May the 6th. And I didn't do a podcast last week. My apologies. Just life is wild. Even being quarantined, life is wild. Miller finally rolled over 2 days before their 4-month birthday. Miles had done it before the 3-month birthday, which is really, really great. So they're both on their stomachs. They both sit there like seals trying to look up at the world, and it's only a matter of days before they start to crawl. So to my mother-in-law and to my mother, both asking me the exact same question, because you know how it is. You want to put on a good face. Oh yeah, things are going great. Things are going wonderful. I'm loving it. I am loving it. There are also times when I hate it, but that's the trade-off, right? Like that's what happens when you're a stay-at-home parent. You know that there are going to be really, really good times, like when your babies roll over and they're getting ready to crawl, or when Britton Bird walks up to me and is smiling, and I can amaze her because I can take 2 blocks, turn them around, and turn them into 2 different blocks. That's awesome. And there are those days when everybody cries for like 10 and a half hours. So how are things going? They're going great. They're going great. Every night, I have Britton on the baby monitor on my side of the bed, which if you're watching the video, it's right there. It's my little laptop is also our baby monitor. And my wife has the twins. That's the tablet with the twins. So I have one on my side. She has one on hers. And I might get emotional here. I am still so amazed every time I think about the fact that I, Mike Wickett, have 3 kids with this wonderful woman, and this is my job, to hang out with them And it is just the coolest, man. It really is. So that's going to do it for the podcast this week. Thank you for listening. We'll have another one for you next week, hopefully, unless life happens, which it tends to do. My thanks again to Brady Goodman. Follow him on Twitter at Brady Goodman. Appreciate him joining me for a very fun conversation. That was probably the only time I've ever had a guest on during this podcast who did more of the interviewing. I felt like I was Brady's guest. So thanks to Brady for that. I hope you stay safe. I hope you stay clean. I hope you stay well rested during all of this quarantine. And I wish you nothing but the best. We are on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Please tell a friend. I would appreciate that. We will do it again coming up next week. This has been Check Out My Dad Pod with me, Mike Wickett. Thank you so much for listening. Until next week, as always, #Family First. Thanks for listening to Check Out My Dad Pod. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you find yours. Thanks to the band from Silverman Sound Studios. And if you have any feedback, feel free to find us on Facebook. Search Mike Wickett Podcasts, or you can send me an email, MikeWickettPodcasts@gmail.com.